Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's discussion, which is how guilt around money holds you back. How does guilt around money hold you back? This is a surprisingly common, and what may be surprising to some of you, it's common across classes. So this is something that people who have, might be typically called rich or wealthy, that many of them struggle with, but it's also something that people in the supposed middle class struggle with, people who are more financially challenged struggle with. So it's, and this is why, because some of us have guilt about how much money we have, like that we have too much. Some of you might feel that way about yourself. You might feel like you have too much, or do you really, quote, deserve it, right? You might have some thoughts like that. You might feel, so that's one piece. But you could also have guilt around how you've spent your money. And that can apply whether you have millions of dollars or hundreds of dollars. Right? You might feel guilty around how you also might have guilt around how you've obtained your money. Like there's people I work with who feel like they didn't earn it. Maybe they got it from their parents, or maybe they did get it through a job, but they still don't feel like they truly earned it. There's different reasons why people might feel that way. So people might feel guilty about not simply that they have the money, but also some people do just feel guilty for having it, but some feel guilty for a perceived way that they feel like they didn't earn it, or didn't earn it in the right way, right? And I'm not talking about people that got money illegally. Obviously, yeah, if you got money illegally, you didn't earn it in the right way. But I'm talking about people who did get money in perfectly legal ways, but still feel like they didn't earn it. They didn't truly earn it, so they don't truly deserve it. So there's that. Like I said, I've worked with so many people who feel guilty that they don't have money. That's true too. People feel guilty that it means something bad about them, that they don't have more money than they have. Sometimes it's people who grew up in financially challenged families, and they even feel guilty, even though they were born into their family not of their choosing. They even feel guilty about that. Maybe they had experiences as a child where they were made fun of for not having sneakers, or for something else about their financial situation. And so now they still feel a sense of guilt that they came from that class. So some of it comes from that area. But then there are other people who feel like they feel guilty that they don't have more money because they feel like they should have made more money as adults. So there's that as well. Some people feel guilty for how they've used their money. So let's say they spend money and they build a big mansion for themselves, and then later they feel guilty that that's how they use their money when, let's say, people are starving, right? Now, again, I think it's healthy and helpful to always be willing to look at how you're using your money. That is a reasonable question. Like, is spending money to build a giant mansion, is that the best way to spend my money? Is it the way I really want to spend my money? Is it really going to bring me happiness? Could I use it differently, whether it's differently on myself and my family, or differently to help other people? Like, that's wonderful questions to ask. But we're not talking about that. First of all, I'm definitely not here in today's discussion going to try and tell you what I think are the right things to spend money on, or the right ways to make money, of all the legal ways, like what ways because that's not what this is about. This is about an emotional response around money. In this case, guilt. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about guilt around money. And this, like I said, very, very common. Very common to have guilt around money. There's people who had money and now don't have as much money, who also feel guilty that they lost the money, right? Maybe they made an investment with a lot of money, it really didn't work out, or maybe they put it in with an accountant stole their money, or maybe they just spent all their money until they had no money, right? That happens too. And so there's two components of why this is important to talk about. The first might seem pretty obvious, which is just that it doesn't feel nice to feel guilty all the time. To have like a weight of guilt on your shoulders does not feel good, right? And isn't a healthy thing to be feeling all the time, to have that be sitting on you and just be stuck in that, right? Now, by the way, to be clear, all emotions, we're built to feel every emotion. We're built to feel every emotion. There's no bad emotion. Actually, there's no unhealthy emotions. All emotions are healthy. We're built to feel all emotions. So when I say an unhealthy kind of guilt, I don't mean that it's unhealthy to ever feel guilty. But it's going to feel unhealthy to you if you feel stuck in the guilt, right? If you feel guilty for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, that's not inherently unhealthy. Just like it's not unhealthy to feel angry for 10 minutes or 20 minutes. It's not unhealthy to feel worry or fear for a certain amount of time. But these are what people tend to really have problem with is like the chronic nature of it, or feeling stuck in it, or feeling like it's repeating over and over again. So the first piece of this is just that having chronic guilt over your financial situation, whatever your financial situation actually is, having that, it just takes an emotional toll on you, right? It just takes an emotional toll. It doesn't feel good. It runs your body down. So that's one reason why it's important to address. The second reason, though, and we've talked about this in some of the past, because, July is Money Month. So every Facebook Live in July is going to be about money. And so in some of the past weeks of this month, we've talked about how your emotions also, if there are emotions around money, your emotions deeply impact the way that you make financial decisions. They deeply impact the kinds of decisions you make, the way you make them, how well thought out they are, whether you learn from past decisions. These are all deeply impacted by your emotional state, deeply impacted. And in fact, if people, for instance, feel guilt around money, it's going to lead you down certain kinds of roads. First of all, it's going to make it very hard to learn from your mistakes, because you're going to be making decisions to soothe your guilt instead of making decisions from what's best for you and from what all your past experience is and learning from that, right? You're going to be busy trying to soothe the guilt that you're feeling. And so that's going to drive some of your decision making. That's part of the decision making issue. Remember what we've talked about in the past weeks of this month, which is that if we weren't so busy trying to not feel different uncomfortable feelings like guilt or anger or fear, but again, guilt especially for today's purposes, if we weren't so busy trying to not feel them, we would save ourselves a whole lot of trouble, and we would make way better decisions, just way better decisions, because we wouldn't be making decisions from a place of trying to immediately soothe a discomfort or unhappiness that we have. So trying to immediately soothe or get rid of a guilt that we have. We wouldn't be making it from that place not because we would never feel guilty. No, not for that. But because if we felt guilty, if we had like a healthy relationship with our emotions, we could feel guilty, like if we had that feeling come up for us, and actually feel it, sit with it, see where it's coming from, notice it, without being like, I got to get rid of this feeling. I don't want to feel this for another second, right? That's where the problem comes in. Not the feeling itself, but I don't want to feel this for another second, right? So that then again, like I said, it's going to lead you down roads of poor decision making, because the decision is going to be all about trying to take the emotion away. So that's it. The other area in terms of decision making, we're still on the decision making piece, is when you're guilty, you're going to get caught up in a lot of ways of thinking that go together with guilt and are very unhelpful. Ways like, here's a really unhelpful one. The concept of deserving. I know this is true to some degree in other countries, but it is very true in my country. It's very true in the United States, which is we are very wrapped up in tying together money with deserving. Right? This is partly where guilt comes from, actually. For instance, it's supposed to be, the way the system's supposed to work in our muddled heads is that people are supposed to have the money they deserve. This is why America loves kicking poor people in the face and cutting off funds for them and stuff. This is why I'm not even saying this is a political statement. This is just a fact. If you compare the American economic and political system to every other Western democracy, it's really different, right? Now, you might like that it's different, the way that it's different. So I'm not going to make a tax argument to you. I'm just trying to say this is why overall in America, compared to other countries, and I have lived in other countries, so I know of what I speak. Americans are very comfortable cutting off funds to poor people, saying nasty things about people they perceive as poor, doing this. And part of the reason for this is because we're very locked in to the deserve paradigm around money. Now, even if you don't care about that, and this is not what today's talk is about how we treat people who are less economically fortunate than us. I'm not talking about that. That just happens to be an explanation there. But the other piece, a side effect that runs through this, is then when we're attached to this deserve paradigm, we get a few things. Either we feel like we have more money than we deserve. So that's a very uncomfortable feeling, right? And I don't blame you if you feel guilty about that, right? The cure to that is different than you think, and we're gonna come back to it in a minute. But let's just first stay with this idea. So some of us feel like we have more money than we deserve, so we feel guilty about that. That would be a reasonable response to that idea. Some of us feel we feel guilty that we don't have more money, like I was talking about before. We feel bad and guilty that we don't have more money, but even that comes from a deserving, because that proves to us, see, if I deserved it, I'd have more, so I don't, right? There are some people too, this isn't a guilt point, but it just relates to another unhappy emotion. There are people who are angry and not guilty. They feel ripped off and angry that they don't have more money. They feel like they should have more money. Why? Because they feel like they deserve it, right? So even though that's not a guilt issue, it's still an unhappiness issue that comes around money because someone thinks they don't have what they deserve. So my point is that this is and by the way, this is also why people, if you look on like the talk shows on TV, people are really into, for the most part, those who have money are fiercely into defending their deservingness. I mean, you see, just go watch any talk show, especially if it mixes money and politics. People with money, with substantial amounts of money, will often say, I worked really hard for my money, right? I don't doubt that. I mean, that's not always true, but let's say it is true for those people that are saying it. Maybe not. But even if we go with that, it's true that they worked hard for their money. That's a meaningless comment, given that lots of people at every economic strata work really hard for their money. Are we saying that the CEO who's a billionaire puts in 10,000 times, or let's even say 1,000 times more work than the person who's working and making 40 grand a year? We really going to say that? Would they make I don't think that's a feasible, reasonable argument, because there's not 1,000 times more hours in the day, right? So my point is, again, I'm not trying, I know I sound like I'm drifting into the political arena. I'm really not. I'm trying to make this point of why is there such a fierce defense on TV of that I do deserve the money? I worked hard for the money. Because we're locked into this deserving paradigm, right? Which, like I said, causes a lot of guilt. So to defend themselves against either feeling guilty or having a finger pointed so that then later they feel guilty, they make a very defensive case for why they deserve it. I'm not here to say they, quote, don't deserve it, because that would still be part of the deserving paradigm. Right? I'm not here to say, you see this rich dude, see, he's saying he deserves it. He doesn't deserve it. That's not my point. That would be more of like a moral or a political argument, and I'm making neither. I'm trying to say that actually that person doesn't deserve it or not deserve it, right? The person who makes $40,000 today doesn't deserve more or not deserve more, right? Because they shouldn't get more. I would love for them to have more, but deserve is not the word for that. Like, I would wish and I would support policies that would help that person be able to have a better income for their family. That's great. That's not because I think they deserve it. That's because I want that for them. And I want them to have that life if that's what they want for themselves, right? So, and if someone does have $100 million, I don't think they deserve that either, or don't deserve it, or whatever. It's the distribution of money is not distributed according to a moral code, right? I know it's weird that I have to say this. It should be really obvious, right? Because teachers make a lot less money than other professions that we might deem less, morally helpful, right? So, of course, money's not distributed that way. We don't take the person who's done the most benefit or put in the most hours and just automatically just distribute the money that way, right? That's how money works in this day and age. So money just gets distributed. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do things to change that, to change your own stars, your own situation, your own financial situation. Of course you can, but that's still different than deserve. That's still different than deserve. There's lots of things that go into getting money. There's luck. There's the way the economy works. There's where you were born. There is how hard you work. Yes, that's a piece of it too. But there's a lot of things that they're mixing around, right? So if you're very clingy to this deserving idea, it's going to create a lot of guilt. It's going to create guilt in you. It's going to create guilt in other people. And it's so weird, right? I think this is hard for people because they think, well, hold on. If I don't think of it as a deserve thing, like, how am I supposed to think about it? Like, how do I think about it at all? How do I wrap my mind around the fact that there are huge disparities in wealth and income in the United States and in the world? How do I, like, if there's no deserving, so it just happens and it's random and it's just unjust? I mean, that's one way you could do it. That's a point of view that people have. But another thing is just to not have to put a moral component on it. Like, I never hear people say, you're telling me that it takes Mars 5 times longer to travel around the sun than Earth? By the way, I don't know if I have that number right. I just made that up, right? But like, where's the justice in that? You're telling me that Earth has life on it? None of the other planets in the solar system or even planets we can detect have life? How is that fair, right? I mean, nobody says that. Nobody has ever said that to me that I've ever worked with. So because we don't put that in a moral, we say like, oh, this just happened. Like, some planets have life, or maybe only one, and some don't, or maybe all the others don't. Some planets travel around the sun at more faster speeds than others. Like, we don't go there. So that's what, actually, if you really want to be free from guilt, that's part of how you'd have to go with money, which is not to try to force a moral framework on something that doesn't really work according to a moral framework. And instead, now you can influence the moral framework if you want to give your money toward things you believe in, right? That's I've done that many, many, many times in my life. That's a wonderful way to have your own. I'm not saying I'm not being a nihilist and sort of saying like have no morals and no values. I'm saying, yes, you can do your values, right? That's different than putting that value on the whole, on all of money and all of distribution and on everyone who has money or doesn't. Right? So yes, if you want to help homeless people, let's do that. That's great. That's different than saying this person deserves money and this person doesn't. Right? So now again, I don't know if that's going to register with all of you. It's okay if it doesn't. It's okay. If you don't want to subscribe to what I just said, that's totally fine. I'm not going to try, force it on you. I will just tell you that if you did do that, it would almost certainly result in significantly reduced or possibly eliminated guilt on your own part. And I know you might say, but isn't that just a way of excusing everything and then not trying to change anything? Again, I don't think you need to label things as deserve and not deserve in order to try and change things. Even if you wanted to change the whole way that money was distributed, okay, but you don't need the deserve thing for that. You could just do that because you are a moral being with values and you want to promote what you believe is a better world, right? So let's come back to guilt. So what happens is that when I want to come back to like what guilt leads to. So when people are guilty, they feel guilty around money. Let's start. So I want to spend a fair amount of time on people who feel like they have money and then feel guilty about it. Not because that's, like I said, everybody feels this in some way, or most people, but because this is it really, really, I've watched this, I've worked with people, this really impacts their way of making financial decisions. They might give money to their kids in a way that they actually think is not in the best interest of their kids, but because they feel guilty. They might give money to other people, not just their kids, other people, out of guilt. Right? They might make different decisions about what to do with their money, where to put it, where to hold it, through guilt. And I've never worked with a single person who has later told me, look, I did this and this and this with my money because I felt really guilty about it. And now I feel great. I feel great that I did that with my money. Like, if I could do it over again, I would do it exactly the same way. Even though I did it, I was feeling really guilty in it, I would do it all I've never had anyone say that who has guilt. I have had people, I'm not saying I've never heard someone say I would do it all over the same way, but those people are not the people that made their decisions through guilt, right? When you make your decisions through guilt, very often you end up regretting it later because you didn't make the decision from your actual interests, values, what's most important to you, what you see as what the future you want to bring. That's not where it came from. Again, it came from, I feel guilt. I'm trying to alleviate the guilt, right? So, and it doesn't work anyway, by the way. It doesn't alleviate the guilt. Again, I know I've worked with these people. I've worked with people just like you, right? It doesn't actually alleviate. It doesn't make the person a year later not feel guilty. And they've made financial decisions that they usually regret. On top of still feeling guilty anyway, right? So this is why this is so counterproductive, and it really holds us back in a lot of different ways. Listen to this. So a lot of people who win the lottery are broke like within a few years. Even if they win millions and millions of dollars, they can win what essentially could easily be a lifetime of money. I'm not talking about people who win 50,000, right? You can blow 50,000, right? I'm talking about people who win millions of dollars, and that could be the nest egg for the rest of their life, but it's gone in a couple of years. Why does that kind of thing happen? Are they intending to do that? No, they're not. When you interview these people, they were never intending. They wanted to hold on to the money. They wanted to have the money in the long term. They wanted to give the money to their kids, right? Or at least a bunch of it to their kids, like when they pass away. So they want to, and that's not what happened. It's all gone. In fact, a lot of these people are actually broker, like more broke in 2 or 3 years than they were prior to winning the lottery. But this absolutely was not their intention. So why did it happen like this? Well, one huge reason is guilt. This is what I mean when I say it just leads to poor financial decision making. A lot of times what happens, this also happens with people who get famous very fast or become famous athletes very fast. A lot of times, not with every person, of course, but with many people, which is they blow all the money really quickly. And they're spending it oftentimes, not only on themselves, but oftentimes they're buying their uncle a house and their niece a car, and they're doing all these things. And a lot of time, and people do unfortunately come out of the woodwork with a lot of these families, and people who maybe didn't even have that strong of a relationship with the lottery winner come out of the woodwork and start, crawling out of the cracks in the wood and asking for money. Okay, but that doesn't mean the person has to give it to them or has to buy them anything, right? But oftentimes they do. Why do they do that? They feel guilty. Do they think this is a deeply wise investment to get the niece that they've only seen once in their whole life a Ferrari? Do they think that's a really smart, awesome decision? No, of course they don't. But they're feeling like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. I just want all this money. No one other in my family has this money, or none of my friends have this money. I should give it to them. And you can do that. You can do that. But again, it's not even going to satisfy you if it's coming from guilt. Look, it's one thing. There are people who give away all their money. That's awesome. There are people, but they do that with intention. They want to give away all their money. That's the whole idea. They want to do that. It feels good for them. They don't regret it. They feel wonderful about it. Yeah, because that's what they're trying to do. But then there are people who are like 3 years later, like, how did I end up losing it all? Those are the guilt operating people, which is most of us, right? We just don't do that because the thing about any sudden influx of money is often we feel, I'm going back in a circle again, but often we feel like we don't deserve it. And whether we want it with the lottery or quickly becoming a star athlete or all of a sudden becoming a famous singer or different things like that, we often feel, so then we feel guilty, and then we bleed money out in very counterproductive and unsustainable kinds of ways, right? And it's okay. Look, I'm not judging anybody. You think I've never made really silly decisions with money that I wish I had made differently? Of course I have. In fact, I told you about some of them a few weeks ago. So of course I've done that. But one thing that I really feel like I've done is I've learned from my mistakes, and I don't ever let guilt be a driver of what I'm doing, of any kind of my decisions around money. And actually, I'm trying to think, I don't really feel guilt. I'm trying to think if this is true. Yeah, I can't remember in years feeling any guilt around money. I'm not saying I've never felt guilt around anything, but I don't feel like I felt guilty around money. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe if I had $10 million, $20 million, I would feel guilty, and then I'd have to work on it. But if I did, if I went down that, I don't think I would. I really don't think I would. But even if I did, right, what I can tell you for sure is I would not be making my decisions through guilt, because I wouldn't be trying to solve the guilt. with my money or with anything else. You know what I'd be trying to do? I'd be trying to feel the guilt. First, just feel it, see what it's telling me, notice where it is in my body. You know, like we've practiced in some other times, really close my eyes, really feel it, not try to be making it go away. Right? I know it sounds crazy, right? Because it also sounds like, but isn't that a recipe for always feeling guilty? As it turns out, it isn't. I know it seems like it, right? If I'm really focusing on feeling it instead of trying to get out of it, I'm going to feel it more, right? You'll feel it more right that second. Yes, that's true. You will feel more. If you really let yourself feel it, you will feel it more. That is true. You will feel it more in that moment, but you won't feel it more in your life because a lot, I've described this before, but when you don't feel an emotion, it's still there. But when you don't fully feel it, all emotions are messages sent by the nervous system. So the nervous system's still sending the message whether you fully receive it or not. Like it's still being felt in you, in your body somewhere. You can suppress it, but it's still happening, right? So what happens when you don't fully feel it? A few things. Number one, you can never resolve it because you're never addressing it. But even more than that, your nervous system has to keep raising the volume of the message until maybe, if you keep not listening, until it's like screaming at you. Like screaming, you're angry or you're frustrated or you're scared. Right? It has to keep raising it because you're tuning that message out, right? This skill, this is part of a larger skill called interoception, which is the brain's ability to detect and decipher signals from the body, or the mind's ability to detect and decipher signals from the nervous system. Emotions are not the only message that are part of the interoceptive system, but they're a key part, and they're a key suppressed part, right? And again, when they're suppressed, right, it doesn't mean you're bad if you suppress it. It just means you're not going to solve it, that problem, number one. So you're going to be more likely to keep feeling the guilt, and your nervous system has to keep upping the volume, like I just said. So the best recipe for continuing to feel guilt and never getting rid of it is, weirdly enough, is actually not fully feeling it. Isn't that weird? I know it seems counterintuitive, but that's how it generally works. So something to think about there. So there's a few, so just to come back to this main point. In terms of guilt, there's two key components of starting to dismantle it. The first is to fully feel it without suppressing it. Like fully feel it, feel where it is in your body, not do anything about it, not even feel it with an attempt to, if I feel it, I'll get rid of it. That's not, to feel it, to fully digest whatever your nervous system is sending to you, right? So that's the first one. And then the second is to really consider dismantling some of the core almost mindsets and perspectives that set up guilt, right? A key one being what? The deserve paradigm, right? The deserve paradigm is a really, really huge one. Really, really huge one. I'll tell you this too. If you are willing to release the deserve paradigm, it has another cool side effect separate from the guilt part, or the lack of guilt part. It has this other cool side effect, which is it really I found this to be so true in my life. It really enables you to appreciate what you have, right? Instead of, remember last week we were talking about that constant sense of not enoughness that a lot of people have around money, regardless of how rich or not rich they are. There's that constant sense of not enoughness. Remember we were talking about this last week. And the thing about that is when you have that sense of I didn't talk about this piece of it last week, but when you have that sense of not enoughness, you can't appreciate anything because it's filling an unfillable hole and you're trying to get to enough, which by the way can never happen when you're coming from that not enough place. But also that's the best you can get, is enough, right? You can't be grateful because the whole grateful part is it's more than enough, right? And that's true. That can be true no matter what your economic strata is, right? Because you could sort of have a sense of enjoyment and gratitude and delight and I'm so grateful for this, for any type of financial thing that comes your way, right? Even if it's small, if it's a small raise at work, or if it's something larger, you could have a sense of gratitude, but it's much harder to have a sense of gratitude when you're locked into the deserving mindset. Because think about it, right? Let's say you do think you deserve money and then you get it, the amount you deserve. Nothing to be grateful for, though, right? I mean, it's just what I deserved. I'm not going to sit there and be grateful and thank God or the universe or whatever. Why am I going to do that? I deserved it. I was just getting what I deserved. So you're only robbing yourself when you do that, right? You're not hurting anybody else. You're just depriving yourself of any feeling, a sense of delight and gratitude about what just happened, about what you just got, right? So that's, you don't have to do it that way, right? You don't have to do it that way. It's incredibly powerful. If you're like, I don't actually deserve anything. I don't deserve, like I said, it's not that I don't deserve it. It's that I neither deserve nor not deserve, right? But then I can be really grateful for whatever does come my way. I can really treasure that. Whether I have $1 million or $500, I can be really grateful for an extra 100 or 1,000 that come my way. Right? I can really enjoy that. And again, that's just for you, right? That's the most important reason to do that. This just makes your life better, right? It's deeply dissatisfying to keep accumulating things and not feel any sense of delight and gratitude about it. That's one thing I will tell you this. It's one thing I feel really happy about in my own life is that I've always really been grateful and enjoyed getting things, getting money, getting things, having a car, getting a new car. I mean, actually, I've never purchased a brand new car, but when I buy a new used car, I feel great. Like I'm so happy. I'm driving around in it. I'm all enjoying. I'm always really delighting in financial and material things when I have them and when they come my way. So, and it's really great. Like people think it's shallow. You shouldn't do that, but they're actually missing. If you look at they have different documentaries where they follow the really super rich people who seem to not appreciate it and are very entitled. And it's funny if you watch those. It's not, people think oh, it's the love of money that creates that kind of person, that kind of problem, where you're just, no money's enough and you're just rich and you can't really appreciate it and you feel entitled all the time. That's not where it comes from. It doesn't come from a love of money, right? It comes from a not enoughness with money. It comes from a sense of deserving and entitlement with money, but it doesn't come from a love of money. I will tell you right now, I love money. I love money. I love it. I love money. I love material things. I love cars. I love shoes. I love clothes, houses, trips. I love it all. I love it all. I'm never going to stop loving it. I'm going to love it till the day I die. And you don't have to love it, right? I'm not demanding that you love it, but it feels great. That never hurts me to love it. What it does is I love it, but I don't feel like I deserve it. That's the difference. I love it and I don't feel entitled to it. I don't feel like it's coming to me. I don't feel like I'm owed it, but I love it. And whenever it comes my way, I'm pretty darn happy. You can ask my wife. I get pretty psyched about this. Actually, my wife's, now that I think about it, my wife's really good about that too. She does the same kind of thing. She gets really excited about stuff like that too. So we enjoy it together. But we don't need it. We don't feel entitled to it. We don't need it to be happy. We don't need it to enjoy ourselves, right? And that also, when you're doing all that together, that's also a recipe for not feeling guilty, right? It's interesting too. If you're really tuned into this and you're grateful and delighting in what you're getting, you're not going to feel guilty about it. You're not going to feel guilty about it. Now, look, maybe there's somebody somewhere that thinks you're not a good person because you're supposed to feel guilty about it. Okay. I mean, someone's entitled to that point of view. Do you want to live your life, though, according to that person's worldview? You got to decide that for yourself, right? That's up to you. That's certainly not my call. It's not their call. That's your call. You get to decide that. But what I can tell you is that if you are really grateful in that way, and you will be a grateful person who enjoys things, you will not be an entitled person, but you will also not be a guilty person, right? It's going to feel really nice. And then you'll also be able to make, coming back to the beginning again, you'll be able to make the kinds of decisions about your money that really align with what you want, what's important to you, what kind of future you want, what your values are. Again, regardless of exactly how much you have, right? Because even if you make something that's in the, the bottom 30% of society, let's say, of the American society, that doesn't mean you don't have choices about what you do with your money, right? So and in fact, that's when it's really important, the choices that you make with your money. So don't you want to be able to make them with kind of clear-headedness, where you can really make them feel good about the decision, get behind the decision, make the decision with the things, taking into consideration all of what's most important to you, And quick hint here, what's most important to all of us is not the elimination of guilt, not the getting rid of guilt in the moment by using our money for something so we don't have to feel guilty today. I know that feels important in the moment, so I don't doubt that it feels important, but it is not what your core values are. I promise you, it's not what your core values are. Right? So that's where you want to go back to this. Okay. Oh, let's look at this. Christine, how you doing? So good to have you here. Such a great reminder. Deserve nothing. Yes. Deserve nothing. Need nothing. Meaning needing nothing to be happy, not needing nothing to live. We all need, food and water and shelter to live. I'm not talking about that. Need nothing to feel satisfied, right? And have a sense of, which goes together with this, see if you can cultivate a sense of enoughness. We talked about that more last week, so that's not the theme for today, but that will also help. That will also help with the guilt piece, which is that being able to cultivate a feeling of enoughness, a sense of enoughness. Enoughness doesn't mean I have no interest in anything more. I said that last week, but I just want to say it one more time. Feeling like I have enough doesn't mean I make $40,000 a year and it's enough. I have zero interest in ever making $41,000 or 50 or 90 or 100. It just means it's enough for me to feel satisfied in this moment and enjoy my life and enjoy the people that I love. Guess what? I still want way more, right? I'll tell you that, right? I would like more than I have. Like, if I could choose right now, I would like double the money that I have right now. Like, that sounds awesome. But I feel a deep sense of enoughness with what I have. I don't feel like, but I can't be happy and I can't enjoy my wife and my life if I don't have that, right? So again, I don't want to go too deep in that. If you're more interested in that subject, go listen to last week's one. It's got some interesting stuff on that point. Okay, so does that make sense to you guys about the guilt piece of it? It's really, really important. You get to. Money's just, I'll just say one last thing about money. Oh, Celeste, how you doing, Celeste? Ron, this is so good. This helps me make sense of my financial past. I feel like I can choose differently now. You know what's so awesome about you saying that, Celeste, is that next week, which is the final week of Money Month, and so it'll be my final money one for right now. I'll do more later, but it'll be my final money one for right now, is all about, I forget the exact title, but it's basically the subject of how to release yourself from the money beliefs of your parents and your family and the beliefs that you were raised on so that you can have true financial freedom. How to release yourself from the beliefs in your childhood and growing up and from your parents so that you can have true financial independence in your own and financial freedom in your own decision making, right? It's not saying that those beliefs are bad. I don't even know what they are because every family is different. It's saying it's about you not getting caught in them and that now having to live by them as you are an adult. Right? So we're going to talk about that next week, Celeste. So that may be up your alley as well. Another one from Chris. Enoughness plays also important into trusting yourself to keep striving for more. Actually, that's a pretty good point. That's pretty good. A lot of us think it's interesting that we do this. We do some weird gymnastics in our head. And you touched on one, Chris, which is this idea of like, a lot of us think if we feel a sense of, to use your term and what I've been saying, the sense of enoughness, if you feel satisfied with what you have, if you feel a sense of enoughness, maybe you just will sit on your butt all day and like not do anything, like not try to better yourself or your life, not try to change anything. A lot of people are afraid of this. It's a strange thing to be afraid of for two reasons. One is it's not what mostly happens. It really isn't. It's not what mostly happens. What mostly happens is when people feel satisfied in a sense of enoughness, they still have things they want and they still put effort into getting the things they want. This happens to me all the time. Right? So one is it just doesn't comport with what reality is about 90% of the time. Or maybe 95% of the time. But I will concede that I said there were two pieces. There's a second piece too. Maybe 5-7% of the time, it does go the way you're thinking, meaning you cultivate a sense of enoughness, you feel good, and you don't keep striving for more. Like, that's really not what mostly happens. But it could happen. It's not impossible, right? It could happen. There are some people that happens. And it has happened to me in certain areas of my life where I really cultivate a sense of contentedness, and actually I don't want to try for X, Y, or Z in certain areas. So yeah, but here's what you're missing. That's not some sort of like oopsie bad outcome. Like, oh, that thing, I did what Ron said and look what it did. I'm satisfied, but now I'm not striving for more. Like you've made some colossal error. But wait a minute. If you're in one of those, let's say 7% of the time where you actually decide not to strive for more because you're truly satisfied with where you are, you're saying that's a bad thing? Like something horrible just happened? I don't get it. Why? If you really cultivate a sense of satisfaction and then you don't try for more on something, that means that this amount is the perfect amount for you. What's the problem? That's awesome. That's great. That's like one of the keys to the good life. That's amazing. Now, if you cultivate that and you still find that you want more, which is what 90-something% of people experience, then you are going to do things to get more. Now, will they all work? No, they're probably not all going to work, but you'll do things. You'll strive. And if you're not striving, guess what it means? It means you don't want more, which means nothing bad is happening to you. That's great. That's awesome. Right? So you win either way. You win either way. But again, I want to come back to that. Just say one final time. This is important. The prerequisite to all of this, to changing having a paradigm shift, to doing all the prerequisite to all of that. And I know I sound like a broken record, so I probably say some form of this every week to you guys. But really, guys, the prerequisite to all of this is what? What am I going to say? Does anybody know? Anybody who's listening, does anybody know what I'm going to say? I've said it already several times today. I said it last week, said it the week before, said it the month before that, said it the month before that. What's the prerequisite to all of this? Before you try and change your paradigm of deserve and even before all that. What's the first thing? Anybody know? Schnookies, do you know? I bet you do know. I'm going to say it if I don't see it soon, but one of you can type it in if you have a guess. What's the first thing, the prerequisite for all of it? I'm going to tell you because I still don't see it. I'm going to tell you the prerequisite is first you have to fully feel the unhappy emotion, like in this case guilt, that is coming up for you. You have to fully feel it first. So these things aren't, I'm not trying to give you ways to sneak out of the feeling. Yes, Celeste, become aware of it, but also it's more than that. That's a piece of it. No, yes, Chris, mindset is important, but I'm saying before any of that, you have to, yes, Celeste, you're correct, be aware of the emotion, but fully feel it. Fully feel it, guys. Fully feel it doesn't just mean like, okay, yeah, I feel guilty, or yes, I feel angry. That's part of it. That's acknowledging it. Fully feeling it means I actually literally sit back, I close my eyes. I close my eyes. And this is going to feel unpleasant if you're not used to it the first time you do it, first few times, in fairness. You close your eyes and you actually focus in on the feeling. Now this is really important. You don't psychoanalyze the feeling. I'm feeling guilty, but this is why I'm feeling guilty. I don't have to feel guilty because we don't deserve anything. It's not that. Right? When you're not trying to talk yourself out of the feeling, you're literally just, okay, so I feel guilty about this with my money. Okay. So I'm just going to feel the guilt. Where do I feel the guilt? Where do I feel it? Okay, I feel it in my upper abdomen, let's say, or I feel it in my throat, or I feel it in my jaw, or I feel it in my chest, right? You're going to feel it somewhere, right? Okay, so now I'm going to really try to really tune into that feeling. Not try and make it go away, not try and release it, not try and explain it. Just fully feel it. By the way, when you do this is what's really cool about this. It helps you in the moment and it helps you in the medium and long term. Because in the medium and long term, what it does is it strengthens your interoception. Interoception is not a muscle. It's not technically a muscle, but it works like a muscle, like a lot of things in our body, which is the more you use it, the stronger it gets, right? So if you're not used to this, it's going to be trickier than the more used to it you get. You'll get better at this. And what you'll get better at is being able to notice the emotion, tune into it, fully feel it. Now you're going to notice, where do I feel it? Now tune into it again. Keep tuning into it. Now you might notice some things. The first thing you notice might be kind of unpleasant, which is as you tune into it, you're going to notice you feel it more, which is like, oh, this is the last thing I want. I feel it actually more intensely than I did before. You might notice it's spreading. So maybe it was in your upper abdomen, but now it's in your chest and your whole abdomen and your throat, right? So, oh, this sounds like a terrible idea. Why would anybody do this? Right? Except it's not a terrible idea, because that is what's going to happen at first. So that will feel more unpleasant than it did 30 seconds earlier. But what will also happen is you're feeling it, so you're receiving it. So now your nervous system doesn't have to keep screaming it at you, because your nervous system is you and it's connecting and it knows that you're now fully feeling and receiving it. So it's now going to stop screaming. So then it's going to dissipate. Not because you're trying to release it. I'm not talking about, okay, release the fear. I'm not talking about that. Not release the fear. Feel the fear. I ask a question to a lot of people that's a really different question than what question I used to ask years ago. So if someone says, and I had someone say this in a session, how do I stop being angry at my mother? Right? This was an adult. This was a person who's, my age asking this question. How do I stop being angry at my mother? And normally what I would have done is I would have asked, oh yeah, great question. How do you stop doing that? Right? But that's not what I would ask now. What I would ask now is, actually, the first question isn't how do I stop being angry at my mother? The first question counterintuitively is, how do I actually be angry at my mother? Because part of this whole problem here is that there's anger about your mother, but you're not actually fully feeling it. You're suppressing it to some degree. So actually, that's the initial problem. That's the first thing where we have to go. I'm not saying never look at and never release your anger toward your mother. I'm not saying, yes, hold on to your anger at your mother for the rest of your life. But I'm saying that's not actually the real problem here. The real problem is you're not actually feeling the anger that you already have, or you're not fully feeling the guilt that you already have, or the frustration, or the fear, or the worry, or the sadness that you already have, right? So the first piece is not, how do I get this to go away? The first question is, how do I actually feel it? How do I actually be angry at my mother? How do I actually feel guilty about how much money I have? Not how do I not feel guilty? First is, how do I fully feel guilty, right? So that's where you're doing. Now, I would say one last thing about this process. If you do this, once you do it for a bit, you're going to see one of two results 99% of the time, which is, result number one is, and this happens with a surprising frequency, is the emotion will completely dissipate. Like completely go away. Now, again, remember, that's not because you're trying to make it dissipate. That's because it's now been received from the nervous system. The nervous system doesn't have to keep sending it. You're good. You got it. This is what emotions are meant for, right? We're not meant to be one emotion. We're not meant to be miserable all the time. We're not meant to be happy all the time. We're built to be able to feel the whole spectrum of emotions. What doesn't feel good is getting stuck in unhappy emotions and getting wallowing in that and getting really stuck in that. Yes, but we're meant to feel the full spectrum of emotions. So that when we allow ourselves that, what happens is our emotions, the unhappy ones, we still feel them, but they move through us instead of getting stuck inside us. They move through us. So we feel an emotion, we feel anger or sadness, but we feel it. It's a transient experience, and then it releases. So that's what will happen. Now, I'm not saying that will happen every time. I said 99% of the time, one of two things will happen. This is the first one, which is you do what I just described and it will dissipate completely. That will happen sometimes. The other thing that will happen as part of the same 99%, other thing, is that it will substantially dissipate, but it will not go away completely. Like, you'll feel a release, but you'll be like, but I still feel the guilt or the fear or the whatever. And that's okay. That's great. That just means now you need to do some deeper work with it. Now you might need to change your paradigm. Now you might need to look at where it came from and what you're reacting to. There's a bunch of ways that I would help you then to do a deeper, longer term, more in-depth dive on it, right? So I'm not saying that doing this is a cure-all, although sometimes, a lot of times, your emotion does dissipate. It's kind of incredible. But again, if it doesn't dissipate, it will dissipate somewhat, and then you can work on the deeper stuff. People get afraid I was just working with someone today who said she was afraid of falling into a hole about the emotion. You're going to get stuck and you'll never be able to get out again. I will say this, I will say this caveat. If you have a diagnosed mental illness, talk to your therapist about this. Because, yeah, all kinds of things could happen if you do what I'm suggesting. And it could get unpredictable and it could be very intense for you. So if you have a diagnosed mental illness, it's a little different. But if you don't, then what I will tell you from working with a lot of people is this is not what happens to people who don't have diagnosed mental illnesses, which is they get stuck in it forever and they're just wrapped in an emotion and there's nothing. What actually happens is that's where the dissipation comes from, right? And they're not in a fight with their own system, with their own nervous system and with their own emotions. And that leads to all sorts of awesome things to happen. It leads to feeling better. It leads to making way better decisions because you're not making your decisions to soothe emotions you're trying to make go away. So it leads to huge things there. It leads to you being able to read yourself much better and know what you actually want much more because you're actually in tune with your system and in tune with your nervous system, right? Being in tune, guys, there's not a lot that's better. Probably there's a few things, but not a lot that are better than being really in tune with your nervous system. It's freaking awesome. It really is awesome. It feels really good. It does not mean, even if you're 100% in tune with your nervous system, still doesn't mean you're happy all the time, by the way. It doesn't mean that. Still means you're going to get unhappy. But can be transient experiences that are going to move through you, especially if you're really connected to your nervous system. You're also going to be really clear what you want. You're going to make decisions that are very in sync with your own values, your own wishes, what's important to you. You're going to have better relationships with the people that are important to you because you're going to be able to you're not going to do things to them, treat them in ways that are not wonderful because you're trying to get rid of an emotion. This is a big reason why people treat each other not nicely. It's not the only reason, but it's a big reason, which is they feel an emotion, they're trying to get rid of their discomfort, and they treat the other person as the cause of it in some way or whatever, and so they're trying to get the person to shut up, go away, stop doing this, so they can feel okay. Whereas if they were in touch with their emotions, they'd still get uncomfortable sometimes, but the solution wouldn't be, I need to step on this person to fix this, because the solution wouldn't be fixing this. The solution would be what? Feeling it. Not fixing it, feeling it, right? Feel, don't fix. That's the key, right? So, hold on. I see some more stuff written down here. Let me see what you guys got going on here. Heather D.A. Mora. Nice to see you, Heather. Shine the light on your discontent so you can notice what is there, notice and feel, ask where you feel it, first steps. Yes, beautiful, Heather. I'm loving it. Celesticus, hold on. I love that question. How can I be angry at your mother? I think, by the way, I think you mistyped it, but it's very funny the way you mistyped it. I think you meant to type, I love that question. How can I be angry at my mother? I think, how can I be angry at your mother? Maybe isn't quite the question I suggested, but I like it. Then you said, wow, feeling feelings that sometimes we're told are not okay to have when we're a kid. Celeste, hold on, let me read that. I read that too fast because Celeste, you're making a really important point. You said, wow, feeling feelings that sometimes we're told are not okay to have when we're a kid. This brings up a really important point. This is such a good point, Celeste. I'm not going to say all families. All families aren't anything. Let's say most families. Most families, and certainly almost all that I've ever worked with, they have certain emotion, maybe one or two, that are forbidden in the family. Now, I'm not talking about unhappiness is forbidden. Actually, most families are pretty okay with unhappiness if it's the right kind of unhappiness for that family. So, for instance, there are families that are okay with anger, but they're not okay with fear or sadness. Conversely, there are other families that are okay with sadness, totally okay with sadness. They're not okay with any expressions of anger, right? These are different. And by the way, again, I don't want to go political, but interestingly, there is some correlation there politically, just as a note. There are certain forbidden emotions tend to skew more conservative and other forbidden emotions tend to skew more liberal. It's actually quite interesting. I don't want to do a deep dive on that right now, but just know that happens. But almost all families have certain emotions that are forbidden in the family. Forbidden means everybody feels them just because they're forbidden. They're still felt, right? But they're not fully felt because they're not allowed to be really felt and certainly not expressed in the family. And so what ends up happening is those tend to be the emotions we shut down in ourselves, and those tends to be the part of our interoceptive system, part of our nervous system, part of our detecting system, our interoceptive system. That tends to be the part that we most shut down. And since in those cases we've been shutting that down since we were kids, we're really, really good at it, and it feels completely natural to shut that down and to be shut down in that way. It feels totally natural because it's not something we learned when we were 30. Something we learned when we were 5, right? Or maybe even younger, right? And so what happens there is, then let's say if anger is the forbidden emotion, let's just say, then you're just shut off to your own anger. You're just going, I don't want to feel it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it, right? So that's why that takes some work. That's why I'm saying the interoceptive system's a muscle. It's a muscle. I'm not going to say it's easy in the first time or the second time or the third time, especially around those forbidden emotions. But those are the most important emotions to fully feel, because those are the ones where your nervous system is screaming its flipping head off and not being heard and received. Let's say you're tuning out anger. So then whenever your nervous system sends that emotion, because again, it's still happening. We have all emotions, right? So your nervous system sends that, but that's the forbidden one. So you're like, la, 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 and you've been saying la, la, la since you were, let's say, 5. So what's your nervous system doing, right? It's still doing that. But again, since you've gotten really good at it, you don't even hear it. It doesn't even sound like your nervous system's saying anything, right? That's okay. This doesn't mean you did anything wrong, but it means that becomes really important to tune into. So Celeste, just an excellent point you bring up. Really, really important point. Celeste is also saying emotion, energy, and motion. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Chris, whoa, it's so awesome to learn from you again. Oh, thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. It's so nice to see you again. Really good to have you here. Heather, oh, nice long one. Feeling a total spectrum of emotions and decide that's okay. Just learn how to feel them all. A wise person said, have time for your discontent. Get a hotel for a night, but don't buy a condo and move in. That's a cool quote. You didn't tell us who said the quote, man. I thought that was strange, but now no, it means don't stay stuck in it. Feel, don't fix. Right. That's right. Yeah, exactly. I would love to know who said that quote. That quote's clever as heck. Hold on. So feel them all, a wise person. I wanted to highlight something you said, Heather. Feeling the total spectrum. Oh yeah. So the question is, right? Instead of trying to feel less unhappy emotions or not feel them, feel happy all the time or whatever, what we want to do, and again, we don't want to be miserable all the time either. Any monochromatic emotion, right, is not going to be what we're built for, right? But here's what I wanted to say. So the key isn't to not feel that, not get angry, right? Never get angry. The key is to feel all of our emotions in a healthy way. Healthy way meaning we're fully feeling it, we're receiving it, we're not blaming it on anyone else. We're just fully feeling, we're not blaming it even on ourselves. We're just fully feeling it, we're noticing it, and we're doing all that stuff that I just talked about. But that's feeling it in a healthy way, right? Because then we can actually, like I said, receive everything from the nervous system. So it's not that we're trying not to feel it. Because I was working with someone today who was talking about, but isn't the goal to not feel these things anymore? Like I keep noticing I'm feeling angry. I get angry at different points when different things happen. And isn't the goal not to feel it anymore? And I'm like, this kind of blew her circuits a little. Because I was like, no, that's not the goal. That's not. I know. Listen, if you learned from me 10 years ago, I probably would have said it is the goal. But I got to tell you something, guys. I've never met another human being ever in my life, anyone who only feels one emotion. Even really miserable people don't only feel miserable. And I've never met someone who's happy all the time. I've never, ever met, heard of, seen, worked with anyone who's happy all the time, right? So I just feel like setting up for something that's this utopian thing that has never been demonstrated in reality is silly. And is actually, there's lots of evidence that that's actually, again, not what we're built for. So it's not about, I want to feel this way all the time, or I want to never feel this other way. It's about, I want to feel everything, but I want to feel it in a healthy way. to be in a battle with my emotions. I want to feel it all in a healthy way. And I want to note that all my emotions are transitory and I don't need to get stuck in any one emotion. But I want to feel all of them, right? Okay. And by the way, should I go into this? Let's see. All right, I got to get off very soon. But let me just in like 2 or 3 minutes. But let me just say this very quickly. I could do a whole other talk on it. I probably will do a whole other talk on it. By the way, you notice how everyone says a whole nother? You know that's like not actually a real word, right? It's a whole other. It's just that we broke up the word another and put a whole nother, but it's not real, right? You guys know that. But everybody says it, right? Anyway, so that's a whole other discussion that I will just open up a little bit right now, which is emotions are messages from the nervous system. We've been talking about that. Emotions are telling you, if they're unhappy emotions, if they're unhappy or uncomfortable emotions, then they are telling you, hey, something's out of whack in you, something's out of whack, and there's something you have to do or have or notice and focus on in order to get back into homeostasis and equilibrium. You're out of whack, there's something you need to have or do or focus on and notice in order to get back into equilibrium and back into homeostasis, okay? Now, tell you one more thing about this, because some people, when they first start this, some people, once I tell them that, they hear the message right away. They can hear it really. Some people, it just comes really natural to them. Once I tell them that, they can lock in. But there's a lot of other people, including the person I was working with today, where they sort of feel like, look, man, I don't hear it. Like, okay, you're telling me it's a message. I'm not hearing a message, man. I feel the feeling. I've gotten better at noticing the feeling. That's awesome. But I don't hear him. What it's saying is out of whack and I need to do and notice to get back in whack. Like, I don't know. Right? So first of all, if you are feeling that way, even after I say this, please don't beat yourself up about it. It's totally okay. This takes time. You're building a muscle, guys. I told you I think last week or the week before that I've been doing CrossFit for the past month. It takes some time to build a muscle, man. It's been over a month now. It's been 5 weeks. It's still really freaking hard for me, man. I still suck at it compared to everybody else there. Suck, right? So it takes some time, right? You can't demand it like, I wasn't like, I've been doing CrossFit for a week. Why can't I do it the way everybody else is doing? Lift the weight. Like, that's absurd, right? It's 5 weeks. I still feel like I got a long way to go, right? And I don't even know if I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay joined in that one. But for right now, it's very clear. Like, I'm different than I was 5 weeks ago, but it takes some time, man. I'm still a long way off. So that's what you're going to find here. So firstly, if you notice, hey, I don't know what this message is. I'm not getting a message. Relax. It's okay. Doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. Doesn't mean something bad's happening. Doesn't mean you lack the ability to do it. Just relax for a minute. It's okay. So you don't do it right now. What's going to happen is, though, if you get more practice at fully feeling your feelings the way we've been describing, it will start to get easier to start to pick up what that is. And I'll tell you 2 things it could be. I'll just tell you 2 things it could be. Okay? These are not the only 2 things it could be, by the way, guys. These are just 2 really common things that it is. All right? So don't get locked in. Don't get like dogmatic about it. All right? Here's one thing. Here's the number 1 most common thing it is, and then I'm going to give you the second most common thing it is. The number 1 most common thing it is called internal tension. Internal tension. I don't mean what you think I mean. I don't mean you're holding a muscle tense. Internal tension is when there's a contradiction, like you feel like there's something you could do and but like there's something to do that would be helpful to you or your body or your family or your life, and you're not doing it. So there's something you kind of want to do and think would be useful, but you're not doing it. Or the reverse. There's something you are doing that you feel like, this isn't good for me. I don't want to keep doing this, but you keep doing it. So internal tension comes from, I think it's going to be most helpful to turn left, but I'm still turning right. That's an analogy for understanding it. I think it would be good to turn left, but I'm still turning right. No, I really think it would be better to turn left. Nope, but I'm still turning right. So it might be something you're not doing that you know would be helpful to do, or something you are doing that you know would be helpful to change or stop, right? And what happened, we have a lot of these. We have a lot of these. It might be as simple as, I want to stick up for myself and say that I don't agree with something, but I'm not doing that. It might be, I want to make these phone calls for work, but I'm not doing that. It might be, I want to change something about the way I'm eating, but I'm not doing that, right? Could be any different thing. The point is, I want to be very clear here, I'm not adding a touch of magic to this. I'm not saying your nervous system knows, and it knows the real thing that you should do, and all you need to do is that emotion's going to tell you the thing you really need to do. It's not that your nervous system knows more than you. Your nervous system knows what you know, right? So what your nervous system is doing is it's not telling you what you really should do. It's telling you about the internal tension, right? If you don't really think, it's not telling you what you really need to do is turn left. It's saying, hey, you think you should turn left, but you're not. You're turning right. It's reflecting back to you the internal tension. Again, I want to be clear. That's not the only place unhappy emotions come from. That's a very, very common one though. That's super common. We're very out of sync in our culture, right? So with ourselves, I mean, so this comes up for a lot of people. Now, I'll give you the second most common one. Second most common one has nothing to do with internal tension. It has to do with just biology. So for instance, you're really tired, but you're not doing anything about it. You're not sleeping or doing the things that your body needs to remedy the tiredness. A lot of people have an emotional reaction to that. You ever met people, the expression hangry, right? I'm hangry, or that people I know people, for some reason I've never been this way. Like I can be hungry for a day or two and it doesn't bother me. But I have a lot of people, friends and my wife, and I have good friends who it really, really does bother them. But the place where this can be an emotion is you're hungry or thirsty or whatever, and you're not, you're continuing to be hungry while you do not remedy that. So it could be hunger, tiredness, could be sick, it can be different things. Look, people have this with hormonal changes. So it could be noting something biological that's not being addressed. Again, remember, that's why it's something you have to, not have to, but to be back in equilibrium, you would have to do or have or notice and pay attention to. Do, have, notice. It's one of those three, right? So those two examples I just gave you are just two. They're just two very common ones. Don't get locked in. It doesn't have to be one of those two. But I thought by telling you that, it might clue you in on what kinds of things to look for. Hold on, let me look for, Celeste is saying, yes, that too. Heather is saying, my Wi-Fi is cutting out. I will watch the replay if I can't get back online. Got it, Heather. Chris, is the importance determining the emotion or just feeling it? Ron, is the importance, I'm not sure what you mean, Chris. Is the importance determining the emotion or just, I think I do know what you mean. Meaning, do I have to name the emotion or just feel it? Well, I would argue I would argue that determining the emotion, if I'm understanding you correctly, is actually the prerequisite to feeling it, right? If you don't determine what it is, you can't fully feel it. So it is important to notice, hey, this is anger. Hey, this is worry. Hey, this is frustration. Hey, this is sadness. Hey, this is fear. Yes, that is really important, but it's not that one or the other. It's that they're part of the same thing, right? Recognizing the emotion is part of that journey into fully feeling it, right? That's part of what it is. In the same way that noticing where it is in your body is part of fully feeling it, right? Not because, you must know it's in your abdomen and not in your chest. It's not about that. It's about that's part of the interoceptive system, and that's part of how we tune in to what's actually happening, right? So I'm not trying to give it a special mystery here. This is a very practical, rational. This is how this is helpful, and this is why it's helpful. Heather, my takeaway: I'm going to stop calling my upset and discontent thoughts. Here's what I would do when I notice it. Heather, you are on the stinking thinking channel. Heather, you're so funny. Okay, Heather, this is what she's saying to herself. For everybody else trying to listen, I'm going to translate Heather to you. She's saying this is what she's going to say to herself. So this is, Heather, you are on the stinking thinking channel. You need to raise the altitude of your attitude and choose an attitude of gratitude, my stinking thinking. Now, Heather, okay. If you are writing that message to be funny, Awesome. I support you. I support you because that is pretty funny. If you are writing that message as a serious message of what you think I'm recommending, it's way off. That's okay. You don't have to do what I say, by the way. I'm not pushing you. You don't have to do a darn thing that I say. But what you just wrote is definitely not what I'm recommending. I just throw that out to you. You can do it. It's just not what we're talking about. Because here's why I say that. Stinking thinking is like already putting a thing, like almost a judgment or whatever. I know you're going to say it's not a judgment, but whatever. That sounds like a judgment to me about thinking. Like, oh, I'm doing the wrong thing. That's part one. That's an issue. Then she says, you need to. I think that's already a mistake in terms of what I wouldn't recommend saying you need to anything. There is no you need to. That's part of what got us into this mess. Like, you need to not feel this emotion. You need to not express this emotion. That's part of the initial problem. We don't want to recreate the problem. Raise the altitude of your attitude. I mean, I don't know, maybe, Heather. And choose an attitude of gratitude. Actually, again, no. It's not that I think attitude of gratitude is awesome. I support that. But I don't think the answer is like, you got to choose an attitude of gratitude. Like, that's the thing. Because again, we don't want to do anything that's going to shut off our ability to first tune into our own nervous system and our own emotions and then feel. And when you get into, this is true for anybody, not just you, Heather, anybody. If you get into, oh no, I want to do it this way. Like, I want to feel gratitude, or I want to do that. If you do that right at the beginning, I'm not saying never do it. If you do it right at the beginning of when you're feeling something, then it cuts off your interoception. It cuts off your ability to detect and to feel. Because, why does it do that? Because you're already telling your nervous system and your body what to feel. And then that you cannot truly see what you're feeling when you're focusing on what you're supposed to feel or what you should feel or what you think you should feel or feeling something else, right? You can't tune in to what is when you're focusing on what should be or what could be. You got to first focus on what is. Now, if you then want to focus on gratitude, that's great. We did talk about gratitude today as part of the global paradigm around money. Yes, we could have that. Oh, there's one more thing I didn't say about money, and I really have to go soon, you guys. You guys, keeping me on. No, you're not keeping me on. I like being on with you guys. But let me just say this thing about money that I never said before when it comes to money. Remember that money is also just a mindset and money's a real thing, of course. Money has an impact on whether you can get food and lots of things, right? But how we in modern society think about money is just an idea in our heads, right? It's just an idea in our heads. And so it's really important about that. That's why feeling guilt and things around money is due to like how we're kind of thinking about money, right? Money doesn't have magical properties. Money has a lot of properties that can be helpful, but they're not magical properties. They're not magically gifted with telling us who deserves what in this world or how things should be or anything like that. They're just something that helps us get other things that we want, right? So if we could kind of come to terms with that aspect of money, that will enable us to, be grateful when we have it, to not feel guilty when we have it, to not feel guilty when we spend it. God, look, I've even done that one. I have done occasionally, I don't usually do it, but I have very occasionally felt guilty when I spent money. I never feel guilty when I get money, I'll tell you that right now. But when I do that, what it does is it ruins, it's like a double whammy because I lose the money because I spent it, but I don't get the pleasure of the thing I spent it on because I feel bad that I just spent it on it. So I don't even, it's literally like lighting money on fire because it does the same thing as lighting money on fire. Lighting money on fire just burns the money and you get nothing out of it, right? That's the same thing that happens if you are saying to yourself, like, if you're doing this dynamic, basically, if you're doing that dynamic of, it's just, I think it's tricky. It's just tricky for a lot of people. It's okay. You don't have to do it perfectly. I don't want to make it sound like I'm trying to tell you this is the perfect right, one right way to do it. But I just throw out that the more you can really not make it more than it is and just feel like, okay, yes, I'm going to be grateful for what I have. If I want more, I'm going to try and get more. but I'm not going to like play a bunch of mind games with myself around the money. That's going to be just very, very helpful. And if you do spend money, then you don't have to listen. You don't have to do what I say, but if you do spend money, the best thing to do there is just enjoy it. Enjoy the thing you spent the money on. Enjoy it, because that's your only chance to get anything out of what you just did, is to enjoy what you just spent it on. If you feel guilty about having spent the money, you've set the money on fire, because there's no purpose to spending it. You lost the money and you lost the thing you spent it on. When I say you lost it, you didn't physically lose it, but you now feel guilty about having spent the money. So you don't get the pleasure from the thing you just spent the money on, which is the whole thing of spending the money, right? And that's true whether you spend the money on a car, or even whether you spend the money on like a nice night, a nice dinner, and then you realize later, oh, that was a lot I spent on dinner. If you do that, what's the point of having just spent all that money on dinner? The money and the food are gone. The only thing you have left is the pleasure. That's the only thing you have left, right? So I just throw that out for you to think. Again, you don't have to do it that way, but if you do, I'd love to hear about it if you do it, because I think you'll be really delighted with what you see comes from that. Okay, remember next week we're doing one more money month Facebook Live, and it's going to be about how to break free from the beliefs of your parents and your family and what you grew up with to have true financial freedom. That's what it's about next week. Okay, let's see. Heather, label is going to be deleted. Thanks, Ron. Zara, oh hey Zara, nice to have you. Anya, hi Ron, nice to see you. Could symptoms of PTSD be a cause of internal tension? That's interesting. Hold on, let me come back to that, Anya. I'll answer that last. Chris, so that's my biggest struggle. What's my biggest struggle? Wait, I missed that. Where did you say what your biggest struggle is? Oh, the importance of determining the emotion? Maybe that's what you meant. Chris, I feel like you're giving me riddles today, and I have to solve them. Okay, so that's my biggest struggle. It's a blood-sucking tick. Wow. Are you saying your biggest struggle is that you can't identify your emotions, and that's the blood-sucking tick, or are you meaning something else? So I'm not sure. I don't want to answer you to not what you're asking, not what you're asking. Anya is saying, I love that you set the money on fire. I am always setting the money on fire. Hey, good to own that and admit that, Anya. Way to go. Well done. Chris, guilty pleasure spending money, that is. Oh, that's my biggest struggle. Oh, no. I'm sorry, Chris. I think you confused me again. Are you saying your biggest struggle is guilty spending money or identifying your emotion? No, you're just saying, yep. Hold on. Tell me this, Chris. Specify which one. Is your biggest struggle the emotion, or that you feel identifying the emotion, or guilt around spending money? Just choose one of those. Write the two words, right? Like the emotion or spending money, and then I will know exactly what you mean. And then I might have a tip for you if you want to. Just write which one is true for you. In the meantime, let me go back to you, Anya, because you're asking a really good question. Could symptoms of PTSD be cause of internal tension? I wouldn't say the symptoms. It's an excellent question. I'm not a PTSD expert, just to be clear. I'm not like certified to work with PTSD, but I do want to say this. My initial thought on it, but you could think more about this, Anya, is not that the symptoms of PTSD are the cause. Do you understand what at least your sentence is saying? The symptoms of PTSD. So like you may have a startle response or a racing heart, or you may have different things or intense thoughts going on, right? That's not the cause of the internal tension, right? I would argue that might be part of the internal tension, not the cause. Like the symptoms of PTSD may actually be the result. Let me say that. That's a little clearer. The symptoms of PTSD may be partly, I'm not saying this is the whole thing, partly the result of internal tension, not the cause. I would look at the internal tension. Like, look, there may be a bunch of reasons why someone's nervous system is super reactive to stuff. in terms of if they have PTSD. So I'm not trying to distill it all down to one thing. There may be a bunch of reasons, and they've gone through really intense traumatic stuff. So there may be a bunch of reasons. But what I would say is that part of where internal tension could be coming from is that they're not feeling safe. The person who's having the PTSD is not feeling safe, and at the same time, that's not tension, by the way, not feeling safe well, actually, it could be. Let me change that. It could be just that they're not feeling safe. It could just be that. Or it could be that they're not feeling safe and not doing something that they would need to do to feel safe. So that they have an idea of something they could do to feel safe, but they're not doing it. There may be reasons. There may be good reasons they're not doing it. They may feel like it's not viable. They may feel afraid of doing it. So I'm not saying they have bad reasons for that, but that would be more of like what an internal tension is, if that makes any sense on you. Emotions. Okay, Chris, gotcha. Emotions. Okay, so you know what? I hear you, Chris. Let's just talk about that for 1 minute, about the difficulty identifying emotions. If that's really hard for you, here's what I would do. If that's a big thing for you, see if you could start. This isn't what I would tell most people, but I think this might help you. Start with the physical. Start with the physical. Oh, hey, Anya's saying that makes so much sense. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome, Anya. Thanks for asking that really, really thoughtful question. So Chris, in terms of your emotions, see if you can first tune into the physical sensation. For you, again, I'm not telling everybody else to do this, because for everybody else, I'd say to probably do that second, but it doesn't really matter. For you, Chris, though, I would definitely say do it first, which is if you're having trouble that you can't tell whether you're angry or sad or scared or whatever, for right now, by the way, I absolutely think you will be able to do this. I really believe that. But let's say you're not there yet. So you're having something, though, if your nervous system is reacting and sending you a message, you're having something going on in your body. You're going to feel some weird feeling somewhere. You're going to feel a tenseness somewhere. You're going to feel a discomfort somewhere. I'm talking about physical discomfort somewhere in you. So that's where I would start, since that seems to maybe be easier for you as a starting place. You need to have a place in the rock. You're kind of climbing a little bit of a rock wall, and you first need to at least have a place where you can get your fingers into that crack to hold on to. So even though the physical piece isn't the end-all be-all, that may be your little crevice to stick your fingers in there to get a hold in the rock, which is, okay, so you're going to just tune into the physical piece first. So first, for a while, like for at least a week, just start to get really used to that, like used to tuning into, I'm just going to notice any physical tightness or weird feeling that I have, and then I'm going to pause and I'm going to do the whole thing. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to tune into that. Just do that for a week. Don't try to identify the emotion yet. Now, in the second week, if you really do this every day, even a couple times a day would be amazing, Chris, you're going to start to strengthen your interoception. So do that for a week, at least a week. You could do it for 10 days, actually. And then after a week to 10 days of that, then as you're going to tune into that physical thing, then start to see what you notice about it. Like, does whatever you're feeling, let's say you feel something in your upper abdomen. I'm just making that up. Okay. Does it have a color? Does it have a texture? Just see if you can know. I know it's a silly, weird question, but see if you can tune into that. Does it have a color? And start to because also you'll start to notice things like, if it's bright red, there's a good chance it's anger, for instance, right? So you just start to notice things there. Then see if you can, and again, you're not going to get this right on the first time. See if you can tune into what the emotion is. This is after 10 days, right? Still tune into the physical thing. Check into what color it is, what texture it is, anything about it. And then see if you can go, what feeling does this most feel like? And you can be wrong the first few times. Don't worry about it, right? No one's going to quiz you on it. We're not grading you, right? See if this feels kind of like anger, or it feels kind of like frustration, or it feels kind of like a mixture of sadness and depression, or sadness and anger. Like, it's okay even if you're feeling that. You're not totally sure. Maybe it's a mix of two feelings. I don't know. That's okay for right now. Eventually, you'll be able to identify each discrete feeling. This is a muscle building thing. This is like my poor CrossFit performance, right? You got to give yourself a chance here. You got to give yourself a chance to build this muscle. It's going to take a little bit of time. But the key is, just like with me, what I'm doing, the key is consistency, right? You got to do it every day. it'd be better to do it twice a day. I don't mean you got to like you have to. I mean, you got to if you want to see a difference, right? If you do it once every 5 days, I don't know. I don't know how, it'll help you a little bit, but it's not going to make you're not going to notice a difference in a week. That's for sure. If you do it every 5 days or every 4 days. So if you're doing it 1 to 2 times a day, hopefully 2, like early and late would be amazing. Then you are going to, in 2 weeks, you're going to notice a huge difference because you're going to have really built that muscle up and you're going to be able to tune in a different way. So that's sort of how I would recommend you get into it. That's where I would recommend you plant your hands on the rocks if you're willing to try that. Let's see. Okay, that's it, guys. I don't see any other questions, which means I'm gonna go, my people. Oh, hey, 2 other quick just announcements. One is I put a link up there. You'll see, which is to our a course coming up in the fall. It's actually being offered twice in the fall. It's all about, we go deeper with all this kind of stuff. It's really, really helpful. If you want to just read more about it, you can click on the link. The link doesn't force you to register for it. The link just takes you to a page where you can read about it, and then you can click another link on that new page to register. So it's not trying to force you into anything. If you just want to click on the link just to read about it and then close the window, that's totally fine. But take a look at that. The one is being offered in September. One is being offered in October. They're both the same. They're the same course being offered twice. It's a 6-week course that's offered 2 hours once a week for 6 weeks. It's awesome. It's awesome. Been really helpful, very practical. That's number one. And the other thing I wanted to tell you is that we're going to be shifting later on August, probably in August at some point. We're going to be shifting how we do these. So I do a Facebook Live every week. Right now, what I'm doing is usually about half of them are autism, half of them are mental emotional. Sometimes in a month like April, I do more autism, and in a month like July, I do more non-autism. But on balance, usually every other week I balance it out. That's going to change. I'm going to be going down to eventually, I'm not going to do this right now, but still doing one next week. I'm going to be going down to 1 Facebook Live a month. I know, but I'm going to tell you why I'm doing that. I'm still going to give you guys just as much. I want to make sure there's at least a time for you guys to ask questions. So that's why I will at least do it once a month. Maybe I'll do it a little more sometimes. Maybe sometimes I'll do it twice a month. But what I'm going to commit to is once a month there. Now, the reason for that is because once a week, I am going to be recording on YouTube. And whenever I do a YouTube, I'm not doing them yet, so don't stress. Nothing's happening this month. But when I do YouTube, and Kate's going to be doing stuff on YouTube as well, but whenever either one of us actually does something on YouTube, I will do something once a week. I don't know exactly how often she's going to do it, but she's going to do it regularly too. And I'm going to post that. I'm going to post the link to that every time I do one. I'm going to post that to Facebook. So even if you don't feel like hunting me down on YouTube and you just want to stay this way, Facebook, you'll always see them because I'm always going to post a link there. Okay. The other thing I was going to tell you, is that all of those are going to be non-autism. Everything on YouTube is going to be mental emotional. It's not an autism channel. That's why I'm going to make sure for those of you that do want help with autism, that I do one once a month on Facebook that is about autism. And so you can still get help in that area for those of you that want that. Okay. So just giving you a heads up. It's not starting next week or anything, but it's starting probably over the next month and a half. And so I just wanted you guys to be ready for that. Okay. All right. Hey, thank you guys so much. A couple more comments here. Definitely will do twice a day. Thanks so much. Awesome, Chris. Celeste, you are awesome. Thank you. Oh, Celeste. And Chris, I'm doing it, by the way. That's awesome. Okay. Hey, I love you guys, man. It's been great to have this time with you. I will see you guys next week.